In this The Duskbloods video, we're going to be talking about everything we know about this game. If you didn't see recently, just a little bit ago, Nintendo posted on their blog an interview they did with Hidetaka Miyazaki, who is the game director on this title, where they're sort of asking him questions about how the game plays, what it's like, etc. So if you've been wondering more about this game after its reveal at Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, and you just kind of want to know like what this game is about, then watch on for some helpful information. So the first thing that we know, obviously, is that the game is multiplayer focused. It is a PVPVE game where players will fight against each other primarily, but they may also have PvE objectives that can spawn in the form of events throughout the game. And I'll get into that in just a second. I want to note, too, that Hidetaka Miyazaki noted that they are not shifting towards a more multiplayer-focused game direction at FromSoftware. They are still making traditional single-player RPGs that people know and love. He took a minute to emphasize this point, so I know that, we have Night Rain out there, now we have this game. People might be wondering as to the direction of FromSoftware. It's really nice to see that that concern was addressed, and it sounds like it shouldn't be an issue moving forward. So the protagonists of the game are known as the Bloodsworn or the Duskbloods. These are the names for them. They have superhuman abilities through special blood, and they are similar to what we would consider vampires, although, as Miyazaki pointed out, they are not like monsters like they are typically portrayed as. They try to take the more romantic elements from vampires and incorporate it into their game. And they're competing for something called the First Blood through an event called Twilight of Humanity, which seems to transcend time and space. For some reason, the first thing I thought when I read this was Mortal Kombat. For some reason, they get called to this championship, and now they're battling off for this First Blood and, in some place or location. Kind of reminded me of that for some reason. Another thing he mentioned is that there's no fixed time period for the game, and there are different maps that will take players to various periods of time, like the Victorian or Gothic style we saw in the trailer, or even modern day settings. So you'll kind of be fighting in all different locations depending on which map you're playing on. And something he also mentioned is that each character has basic actions like sprinting, super jumping, double jumping, but each character has its own unique weapons and abilities, and each character will have some ranged attacks, whether that's firearms or some other abilities. He also emphasized that the abilities that these characters will have will be more dramatic than what we've seen in previous FromSoftware games. That means if you've played Night Rain recently, or if you played the network test, when we're talking about abilities, they're probably going to have more of an impact in the overall game flow than even Night Rain has. There are over a dozen characters in the game to choose from, each with their own appearance and identity, and each character can be customized to a certain degree in order to make it feel like your own. You can change their abilities, you can change their appearance, you can change some of their inner characteristics, and you can also change their role, and I'll get into what roles are here in just a minute. So the general gameplay loop is that players choose their characters in a hub area, they customize them, and then they enter multiplayer. Up to 8 people can play at one time, and after each map, players return to their hub and they get some sort of reward, whether they win or lose, which they can then use to further customize their character. So I'm guessing you're going to be like unlocking things as you play the game. This is not a new concept for anyone who's played any multiplayer game in the last decade. Online matches typically last until one player is left, so a last man standing type scenario, battle royale type scenario, if you will. But there are other victory conditions as well, such as taking on like a powerful boss together, or other special circumstances, which he didn't go into, so I don't know exactly what there are. But he did say that there are some victory conditions that are PvE oriented, and that the bosses are going to be a big challenge for players to defeat. So hopefully that means we're going to see those traditional FromSoftware bosses in this game scaled to a degree for like up to 8 players even. That could be kind of crazy to see. That's like a raid boss or something like that. That'd be absolutely insane. There's also something in the game called victory points that are earned throughout combat and other means. So obviously combat's going to be the primary means that you get these, but he did elaborate that there were other ways to get them, and I don't know exactly what these are. It could be from the role objectives that players have that I'll get into in just a second, or it could be through other things, but he didn't elaborate on what these are. So even though it seems like typically it'll be a last man standing scenario, you may be able to achieve victory through victory points by doing other activities as well. He also mentioned that players can summon an entity to assist them in combat. When you see the gameplay trailer, you see a character summon something. Initially, I thought that was another player, but it seems like it's an actual like NPC or maybe some sort of AI character that assists you. Then in combat, each player can do this. I don't know like what the frequency of it is, if it's just once per match, what these things can do. So that will be interesting to see as well. Apparently matches have variable events too that can alter the course of a match, such as like special enemies spawning or additional objectives being added. And this is something you see in Night Rain as well, right? Like with Margit just coming out of nowhere and then latching onto you and stalking you until you're dead, basically. There are obviously supposed to be more events like that in Night Rain. Seems like that concept has made its way into the Duskbloods as well, but it seems like it's not going to just be like a boss invades you. There's going to be other things that you can do. These don't happen all the time. They're supposed to be randomized and not so common. And the idea behind these, again, is to give you a reason to come back and keep playing so you can see all these events and how they impact your match. And as mentioned just a little bit ago, there are also roles that people have that provide unique objectives within the game that are not the overall objective, such as the Destined Rivals role. This designates another player as their rival when they enter the match and provides them the separate goal of defeating that player inside the match and rewards them for doing so. So not only are you going to be trying to do the main objective, but you might be prioritizing that character. That way you're getting some special reward just for doing that, whether you win or lose the match. There's another role called Destined Companion that allows the players to find another player that is their Destined Companion and bond with them. He didn't elaborate on what that means exactly. I don't know if that means like you conspire to work together and cooperate in taking down other players or in PvE objectives. I'm not exactly sure how you do that, but again, that will provide you with additional rewards. And players can customize their roles in the hub, allowing them to take on the objectives they want for any given match. And obviously there are going to be more roles than just those two, but those are the two examples that he gave. So I think you can expect, these kind of remind me of like pseudo covenants for some reason. I don't know why that's the first thing I thought when I thought of these. Setting some objective, like maybe defend an area or make sure a boss wins or something. These all remind me of like covenant mechanics from days gone by or something like that. It's really interesting to see them kind of making their way into the Duskbloods. And the last thing that Hidetaka Miyazaki went on to say is that the Duskbloods is sort of a place for FromSoftware to take a lot of their ideas that they've had and throw them together and see how they work, things like that. He kind of implied that it was like a playground. He didn't outright say that it was, but he kind of implied that, you know, it's a place where they can take ideas that they have and see how they do. And then, you know, maybe they might implement them in other games. He didn't say that they would, but I kind of get the sense that this is what FromSoftware does. They try out new things, they take what they like, and they put it in another game in the future, or maybe they tweak it a bit and put it into another game. So I kind of feel like this is FromSoftware getting outside of the box a little bit. I mean, Night Rain was that, you know, last week a little bit, but now the Duskbloods is like even further, kind of getting to some crazy abilities like flying around, and obviously he said some of the abilities are going to be over the top. So it makes me wonder, like moving forward, if we won't see some more crazy type games from them that are, you know, more the traditional mainline games, but maybe they incorporate an idea or two here from the Duskbloods. So that really wraps up everything we know about the Duskbloods so far. So it sounds like this game is going to be a battle royale type game where it's last man standing, but there are other objectives, and sometimes events can happen in the middle that change your prerogative, like what you need to do next. And obviously you'll have your own personal objectives from your roles, which might not be clear to other players. So you kind of have like your hidden objective along the way as well. And it seems interesting. I mean, if the game has typical FromSoftware combat and with new, you know, abilities on top to kind of soup it up, I think PvP players, fans of FromSoftware that like to play Dark Souls or Elden Ring for PvP, or even Bloodborne for PvP, they may really love this game. There is a sizable audience for PvP out there in FromSoftware titles, and I'd be curious to see how many of those people really enjoy playing this game. The one caveat being that it's on Nintendo Switch 2, and I don't know how many of those players that PvP in these games are going to go pick up a Nintendo Switch 2 just to PvP in this game. So what do you guys make from hearing all this information? Is this kind of what you thought of when you first saw the trailer and you heard that it was a PVPVE game? Is it refreshing to hear Miyazaki say that the studio is not changing direction and they're still working on the single-player titles that we know and love, and that, you know, this is kind of a bit of a outside-the-box experiment a little bit? I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below.